Hey folks, Jeremiah here, trapping today, and in this video I'm going to skin a marten. So here is our marten, a small marten, probably a female or juvenile male caught in northern Maine. They're not huge here, so but this is one of the smaller ones that I've caught. But that's the one that I got thawed out, so I'm going to skin it. I'm going to go through the different things that I use and where I find things that you might find useful, different products or certain things that that are helpful for skinning. I'll try to provide links to those in the description of the video, so you can check that out to see where you can find stuff. But first thing is rubber gloves, disposable rubber gloves. These things are kind of a must if you want to keep clean and sanitary. So I just pop a pair of these on. I get them by the 100 pack, and we've got our marten. So when you catch the animal, one of the important things to do, a lot of times they have fleas, so you can put that animal in a plastic bag, spray it with Raid, make sure you get the stuff that kills fleas. That'll work pretty quickly. I just spray it and close the bag up, seal up the bag, and let it set for a few hours. Usually does the trick. The other thing you can use is Diatomaceous Earth. This is just a bunch of little tiny diatoms that kill insects. It's kind of an organic way to do it if you don't really want to worry about getting Raid on you or something you want to do it the natural way. I would not get it in this container because this is incredibly overpriced. I get them in the 20-pound bags because you get them at like Tractor Supply, feed stores. But it's the same stuff. You just it's like a powder. You just put it in there, rub it around on the fur, shut the bag up, and let it do its thing. So you do want to take care of the fleas, and then we want to kind of look the animal over and maybe take a fur comb. We want to try to get it nice and dry. There's going to be oftentimes wet spots as you're thawing it out, and then there's going to be like places where the fur is a little bit matted. And so I'll kind of go over that. I get a fine comb. I try not to go really hard on this because you can pull out a lot of the under fur. You don't really want to mess with that. But if you have any burrs or sticky spots in the skin, maybe just go over it lightly, see what you can get out with the comb. Don't work it over too hard. If you have like stuff that's really large, this is more of a long fur comb, and this is usually used for like coyotes, fox, or for like fishers that I have back here, but you can use it on marten at times as well. So you just make sure the fur is kind of dry, relatively dry, and clear of any real bad junk. And then we take the animal and put it up on our skinning game grill. You can use a variety of things. You can actually clamp a foot to a vise on a bench. That'll work. This is just a game grill, an old style game grill that somebody gave me. My good one I lost when my fur shed burned to the ground, so this is what I've got. I'm going to replace that one with what I had before, which was I think Keith Winkler makes it. It's kind of like this diamond chain stuff with two rings on the end, and all you do is make a loop with the ring and you wrap that around the animal's foot and it cinches down. It's very, very easy to use and effective. This one has hooks, and you basically, usually it's used for like fox and coyotes, and you hook into the tendon behind the leg bone. But for the marten, I'm just using this, pushing the hook through the foot. So I'm just going to do that there. It gives it a pretty good hold, and the animal can hang there for you to make your opening cut. Now, I will tell you that I am not an expert skinner or fur handler, so there's probably a lot of you experts on here watching the videos that have done more than me. If you don't like the way I'm doing things, you have ideas on doing better, just leave a comment in the comment section and let me know. But I think if this is the first time that you skin a marten, or you're kind of looking to learn for the first go around, hopefully this will give you some tips. It works well for me. I'm not a good skinner. I'm not a fast skinner. This takes forever for me, but I take my time. I get I get average or better on the fur usually, so it works. So the other thing is I have two guides that I usually use for handling fur. This is North American Fur Auction's Wild Fur Handling Manual, and it covers different species. So I usually use that. There's a section here on Marten. It goes over different things to look out for and advice and tips. And then the fancy one is Commercial Standards for the Marketing of Wild Fur. F&T Fur Harvester Trading Post sells this. It's a pretty expensive book, but it's pretty cool. It's got all kinds of pictures, and this is a section on marten, fisher, and badger, how to handle them, what to look for, what to do. So this is what I use as a skinning knife. This is a Havilon Piranha knife. It's between $40 and $50, so it's not a cheap knife. It has it uses disposable razor blades. These are the Havilon. These blades are size 60 XT. They're really tough, really thick razor, or they're not razor, they're scalpel blades, I guess. And you can replace them really easily, pop them on and off. It's a great knife, very versatile. I scun moose, deer, and elk with this, with these scalpel blades, no problem, all the way down to weasels. So this is what I use. The replacement blades are pretty expensive. They're usually, if you buy a bunch of them, you can get them for like 40 cents a piece, but they're 50 or 60 cents or more if you only buy a few. So what I do is I use these for the first part of skinning, and when I get down to the other areas, I'll show you where I move to a different knife. You can use any knife you want. I like these because they're super sharp. I don't like to spend a lot of time sharpening knives if I don't have to. For Marten, the opening cut is going to start at the underneath kind of the foot here, or the joint at the foot, and it's going to go on the inside of the vent to the center, and then it's going to go out to the other foot. And one of the mistakes that people often make is they'll go too far back on the cut and they'll go straight to the vent or the base of the tail. You want to go in towards kind of the male or female parts, I guess, right in the front of that area. And what the reason for that is there's a lot of long hair on the back side of the leg, and you don't want that long hair on the belly. You want that long hair to be on the back, and that makes the pelt longer, and that's the usable area of the pelt that the buyers want to see. So this can be a tricky cut because you have a lot of thick fur to deal with. And again, I am super, super slow. And I'm trying to hold this for the camera. Alright, so I've gone to the center. Then I'm going to kind of change where I'm holding this a little bit. And then I'm going to go and do the same cut from in front of the vent up towards the other foot. Alright. And there we go. Now, when you're doing this back part, when I learned how to skin marten, an old fur buyer taught me, and he was really experienced, a really good fur handler, but the way that he taught me is pretty time consuming, and what I've noticed, I have not gotten better money for my marten. You know, it was always said that you would get better prices, but that has not worked out for me. It's actually hurt me a little bit. I'll explain that in a little bit. But what you're going to do is you're going to work out from your cut, and you're going to skin. You're going to just use your thumbs. You don't want to do much cutting here. The marten skin is very thin and pretty fragile. It can rip if you work too hard on it. So you just use your thumbs and you kind of separate that skin from the meat and you pull up towards the foot. Now, the old time fur buyer taught me, he went right up the center of the foot and he'd skin around all the bones on the foot, and you'd actually have all the way on the front part of the foot, you'd have that fur on the pelt. I did that for a long time, and now I pretty much just, I make a cut and I go up a ways if I can, but there you have it. That's what I leave. And you get some tough spots as you're pulling the fur down. You use the razor blade knife. You just try to make sure to stay on the meat side and not the skin side, so you don't make a cut in that pelt. believe me, I've done it. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side, just working kind of in the opposite direction, using our thumbs to separate the skin. Nice and gentle, lots of thumb work. You go to work on the outside of the leg, you're going to have a few tough areas that you're going to make a couple of little cuts with on. And the Winkler skinning gambrel is actually a lot nicer because it swivels. So that helps to move the animal around and not have to worry about that thing trying to swing back on you. Alright. We got that mostly done. I'm going to pop that out. And the next part we're going to work on when we get down to here is going to be the tail. And that is an area that you can easily mess up. So we're going to take our sweet old time. I don't have a lot of these to do. We don't catch a lot of marten. We can only keep 25 per trapper per season. So I only catch so many, so I really don't want to screw them up too bad when I'm handling them. So I just take my time. Okay, so this is a female marten. So just making note of that. I'm cutting out the front. Now we have to report sex of our marten and submit a jaw sample or tooth, and so I keep track of that. And also, if you're managing in certain areas, sometimes you want to watch the ratio of males to females that you catch. Not as much of a concern here, but a lot of trappers do that. Now you have the vent and the base of the tail, and you're going to go out from the vent, and you're going to just make a cut. And be careful, I'm kind of cutting towards my hand, which I shouldn't be doing. But you start that cut and you kind of open up the tail. And I'm doing this to show you, but I usually do it the other way. I usually hold the tail towards me. But you're just going to open that up, and you're going to keep cutting right in the bottom center line of the tail. And I make shortcuts because if I make too long, oftentimes you can just whoosh and go right off to the side of the tail, and then you got a ripped up tail, and that doesn't look very pretty for the fur buyers. So what you're going to want to do is get down to a certain point at which you are comfortable stripping the rest of the tail. I usually go maybe close to halfway, and then I'm going to cut back here at the base of the tail and the vent. I'm going to separate that out right around where the marten glands are. The glands are really small. I save all mine. I make lure out of them. Alright, so you see here the glands right at the base of the tail. I'll cut those out later. Alright. Be really careful. I probably cut that a little too much. Just trying. And then you're going to just work around the back of the tail. It's kind of really tough patch of fur right there. You're gonna open up the fur all the way around the tail. So that you can wrap something around the entire tail. This one's kind of making a mess on me. Alright, so I get that pulled down. Okay, so we get enough of the tail exposed. Now we're going to take our tail stripper. So just standard plastic tail stripper, pretty simple. You can find them pretty much everywhere. They're cheap. You can get an aluminum one, last forever. Except when you have a fire in your fur shed and you lose everything, you lose both the aluminum and the plastic. You can sell the aluminum for scrap for a few pennies. Just get the size right. The size of this tail, we're using the small opening of the tail stripper. Be careful you don't go too big or it'll fly right off and you'll rip the tail. So you just hold that tight, and then with one hand and the other hand you grab the tail and you pull it up on through like that. There's your tail, and there's your tail skin. And then you use a tail zipper. I don't have one, so I take my time. But the tail, you can use a knife or a cannula, which is often used in like surgery and stuff. But I do not have a zipper right now on me. So I'm just gonna go right down the tail. And just be very careful, and you need to open up that tail, split it all the way down to the tip. So I'm just going a little bit at a time, opening it up. And the reason we want to do that is because you need to allow that inside of the tail to be able to dry so that it doesn't spoil and lose a bunch of hair and have bare spots and make the fur buyer say, I don't want anything to do with that pelt. So we're almost there. As you can see, work our way all the way down, and we are at the end of it right there. So there's our tail all split open. Now we're gonna grab this. I'm just gonna cut out a little more behind the leg here. Alright. I made a little bitty hole there. That was a mistake. I was being a little too fast, but that won't be a problem. We'll take care of that later. Alright, now the next thing that I do on these, once I get this pelt down a ways to where it's going to really start moving on us, is I skin out the arms. And I'm going to lift this up a little bit so you can see better. Hopefully. So what we do is go on the inside of the front foot, and we're going to skin from the base of that up to the elbow on each side, and we're going to just kind of pull that section off, separate the fur from the arm. And I don't go all the way to the elbow, I just go like right before it usually. So we get that opened up, and then we just make a few cuts to get around the arm. You can kind of be a little quicker. You don't have to worry about messing this up because most of this is going to be cut off anyway. So what I used to do is, like the old time fur buyer told me, is he would skin the front of those feet out, all the way out, and leave that whole piece. The reason that I ran into so many issues with that is because when I put that animal on the board, okay, so see, we get to the foot, I'm just going to cut that off right there. So I'm not even going to use that. Because when I was handling the fur and flipping the Marten over on the board, I'd pull the front feet out and have this section of arm out on the outside of the pelt. It may look good to local buyers. The problem is when this fur gets drummed at NAFA, if these arms are hanging out when the fur is getting tumbled through the drumming process, that will cause the pelt to rip if it catches, and it's not a good thing. I have been downgraded on pelts. I've sent pelts to NAFA that have been just very perfect, very well done, well handled, looked awesome, had no issues with damage or anything, and they got graded as severely damaged, and almost gave them away. And it took me a little while to come to the realization, and then I was reading in the NAFA guide that no, you have to keep those inside. You do not turn those arms, flip those arms out when you turn the pelt. You leave them in on the inside of the skin, and the reason for that is to avoid damage during drumming. So it's something to consider. Just make sure that you don't cause yourself any extra problems. So we got that skinned out, so we're going to pop those out in just a minute. Now the other thing I do, I've made my precision cuts around the legs and the arms with that really sharp knife. Then I got this kind of general skinning knife. It's I don't know, this one's a Montana Knife Works. It's just kind of a run-of-the-mill knife, and it's not going to be as razor sharp, and I use this for more of the rough work, so I don't have to keep replacing those razor blades at 40 cents a pop. And some Marten, it all depends on how fresh they are, what stage the animal's at, and a variety of other things on how easy it is to pull this pelt down. Some of them, like this one, seems to want to be worked with a bunch of cuts. Sometimes you got them where you can kind of just peel them. That guy, it's not going to happen. Another thing that you can do, and that I didn't do, is you can hook up this other foot on the gambrel for this portion of the process. Alright, so we get more of an even pull here, and still he doesn't want to, I'm pulling pretty hard, he doesn't want to come off, so I'm going to keep kind of cutting a little bit here and there to try to loosen the skin, the pelt from the body. Some of them you can just peel them right down, they go nice and fast. But again, try not to rush too much, because I can't just go out and catch another one of these if I mess it up. At least not this year. See, that's starting to peel, that's coming down nicely. Alright, now we're going to just pull it even with even pressure all the way down, nice and easy, nice and easy. Look at that come down. Alright, so now we're going to go until we start to see the bumps from the arms. See those bumps there from the arms? I'll pick this back up for you. Well, maybe I'll have to lower the camera a little bit so you can see this better. Alright. So when we get to these, see the shoulders here and the arms here, go down just a little bit more, and then you should be able to work your fingers in underneath the arm. See that? That pops right out. That part we skinned is already ready to go. Have a nice day. Get that arm out. We get that arm out. That's like the quickest part of the whole process. Now, this is going to be doing a lot of cutting against bone. This is where the razor knife will get dulled. So we use this one. And now we're getting to the head, and we got several things to cut around. We got to cut around the ears, the eyes, and the mouth. And the first thing you're going to see is the ears. They're pretty low on a Marten, and they're quite a ways further back than you think. So you always want to make sure that you're cutting, you're being conservative with where they are. I think the ear's kind of right in here, so I'm going to cut way back here. Alright, trying to be safe. There it is. So see that? There's the ear hole. Do the same thing here. Start way back so you don't mess it up. If you go too far down, you're going to get a big ear hole, and it's just, it might not kill you, but it's not going to look as good. Now, then we just kind of make sure we get that all separated. And the next thing we're going to do is keep an eye out for our eyes. This is where a knife really dulls. If you want to use just one knife here, what you can do is use the tip for the precision cuts, and then just use the base of the knife for these lower cuts that are really going to dull it, so at least the tip of your knife stays sharp. Alright. So we're going to go, and then we're going to see an eye right about here. Just keep cutting. There's the one eye. There's the other one. Give him a quick wipe. We're going to make sure you cut really good at the base of the eyes, so that you have the skin free from that area. Then you're going to work your way down till you get to the mouth and the nose. The lower jaw is not really a problem if you don't get all of it, because that is going to get cut off anyway for the most part, unless you're doing this for taxidermy or something. But you definitely want to keep the nose on. So just kind of work your way down. See the teeth there, the mouth. You just kind of keep slicing, working your way down. There's the nose. Boom, we're done. So that is skinned marten pelt. That's just the slow and simple way to skin a marten. Now the next part of the process is going to be fleshing the pelt. They flesh really easy. You can't be hard on them because you rip the pelt. But there's very little fat, almost no fat, and very little meat on the pelt. So they're really easy to flesh. Then you go stretch them. You're going to stretch it fur in until it gets pretty dry. A little bit starts to get a little bit papery, not quite too papery, and then you're going to turn that pelt and it's going to be finished fur out. So anyway, hope that this helped give you some tips and pointers on how to get started skinning marten. Again, not an expert, not a fast skinner by any means, but this will get the job done. Have a good one.